Hey everyone, presentation number 9 is entitled Motivation and Attitude. Motivation. So network marketing contains up motivation and down motivation. Down motivation we're going to call a hot bath, and you'll see why in a second. And up motivation is considered constant, and you'll see why in a second. First of all, the hot bath. You ever notice when you take a hot bath, the hotter the water, the quicker you cool off. And the same thing is true with motivational, hyped up rallies or anything that initially gets people fired up and ready to go in their business. Problem is, when they initially get fired up, the more revved up that they get from the rally or from talking to their sponsor or from reading a book or whatever they're doing, the faster they tend to wear off and slow down. So down or hot bath motivation includes seminars, meeting with your sponsor, reading a book, moving product, etc. None of these are bad things. They're great and they have their purpose, but they're considered down motivation. So before we get into up motivation, let's talk about attitude. And you think about attitude in terms of the degrees on a thermometer, and let's say in order to stay effective in the business, your attitude has to be at least 50 degrees. If you're boiling, in other words 212 degrees, you're really doing great, but your effective level is 50 degrees. So I'll give you an example. A new person signs up in the business, they're excited, so their attitude is at 65 degrees. But a lot of times what happens before they learn, they go out and talk to people and get negativity from their prospects, then they get negative themselves and they drop below 50 degrees and their excitement is done. So what will happen is that the new person will meet with their sponsor, get their objections and their questions resolved related to what the other people said, and they'll go back up. Down motivation will push them back up to above 70 degrees, but the problem is that it'll only last a little bit longer before they're back down below 50 degrees again. So the question is, how do we keep attitude above 50% at all times? How do you stay effective in your business at all times? And the answer is up motivation. Up motivation stops the yo-yo because, in other words, the yo-yo is the up and down, because it is constant. Up motivation comes from activity below you in your organization. In other words, you have a sponsor and you use your sponsor to help sponsor people below you. Now, each level below you adds more constant heat. So if you take a look at these diagrams, each of your first level people that you get is worth 5 degrees. So if you had 10 people on your first level, that's 50 degrees. You're effective in the business. Each second level person is worth 10 degrees. So if you sponsored one person and they sponsored 5 people, you would have 55 degrees. So that keeps your attitude level consistently above the 50% threshold and keeps you excited about the business. So as your organization grows deeper and deeper, each level adds good attitude degrees exponentially. So you can see your first level is 5 degrees per distributor. As you build depth, level 2 is 10 degrees, level 3 is 20 degrees, level 4 is 40 degrees. So let me give you an example of up motivation. Carol sponsors Tom, Tom sponsors Bill, and then Bill goes out and sponsors 5 serious people. Carol, Tom, and Bill are all excited, and the excitement runs up throughout the organization. That's why it's called up motivation, because it motivates up. This can also convert some of the silver ships in your organization. By building depth in an organization through up motivation, downline gold ships will motivate silver ships to convert to gold. So you work with your gold ships, and you excite and convert your silver ships in between, and they'll turn into gold ships. So fostering independence, one thing that you don't want to do is have people that you have sponsored develop a big dependency on you. There has to be a point where you're working towards people becoming independent. Once your people can teach their people to teach all of these presentations, they should be relatively independent. And once one of your 5 personally sponsored people becomes independent, you can go find obviously another serious person to replace them only at that point. So to summarize, let's pretend Sue sponsors a new distributor. Sue is like the sun. The person she sponsors is like a pan of water. No matter what the sun does, it can't make the water boil, because to boil, water needs to hit 212 degrees. And no amount of down motivation can ever make the water boil. In order to boil, you need some other heat source. So the only way to make the water boil is with up motivation. If Sue's sponsor helped her sponsor one person, there's a burner lit under the pan. Just like the thermometer, as the group grows, the temperature rises. And once the fire is lit and that water starts boiling, the sun can go away and the water continues boiling without it. So ongoing management. Once you have a person with the water boiling, it might look like something on the right. The first one to boil is not necessarily the first one you sponsor. You might have to sponsor 15 people to get 5 that are serious and really working. And understand, if you think of yourself as the pan, you can only go on 5 burners at a time, so the other 10 need to go on the back burner. You work with your 5 serious people and drive them. When the water boils for one of your 5, then you can take a trip around the back burner and see if you can find somebody to replace the one that is already boiling and independent. And here are some examples of different ways to boil. It could come from 1 leg or 2 legs or 3 legs. It really doesn't matter as long as you get that depth. So lastly, in the presentation coming up, we'll do an overview of the entire system and how you put all this into practice, as well as a quick review of what you've learned throughout these 10 presentations. So I'll see you in the last presentation.